What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about British drinking culture. When Americans think of Britain and the UK, we certainly think of drinking. Maybe it's all the popular culture or something. Like, whenever I see Britain referenced in pop culture or some kind of movie where it's a British movie, it always seems to have to do somewhat or a lot with drinking. I not too long ago reacted to another video that was trying to explain to me exactly what a pub is, the difference between a pub and a bar. I'm starting to wrap my head around the whole thing, but the whole British drinking culture is fascinating to me, and I wish to learn more. So this video here seems absolutely perfect. It's actually someone who is Canadian. Yes, she is Canadian. She lives in the UK now, and I think that's really one of the best ways, like the best way, to experience the difference is from her point of view. Explaining it to me is going to be very, very helpful because she kind of is living it and experiencing it, and it sticks out to her, the British drinking culture. And this video is actually 20 minutes long, I see, so this will probably end up being two parts, actually, because apparently there's a lot of culture in the British drinking. Who knew? So, with that being said, let's take a look.
The first thing that I notice here in the UK with regards to drinking is that I feel it is much more predominant in UK culture than in Canadian culture. Now, of course, there are stereotypes, Canadians watching hockey and drinking beers and...
Yeah, I was about to say, Canadians are, at least two Americans, man, this is getting very meta. Two American Canadians do drink, or at least we visualize them drinking while watching hockey or something. Americans, I don't know how the world perceives Americans, but Americans like to drink and watch American football. That's a thing. And we kind of imagine people in the UK drinking a lot as well. So I guess just everyone loves to drink, huh? Is that the lesson here?
Going a little bit rowdy and stuff. Of course that happens, but I just feel that alcohol and drinking is much more part of the culture here in the UK than it is in Canada.
Okay, so maybe, and we are talking about like on average here, drinking in the UK, it would be considered just a bit more normal or to drink. And maybe if you don't partake in the drinking, maybe it's a little more rare than you find in the United States, maybe something like that.
And I can only imagine if you don't drink, that it could be a bit difficult here.
Yeah.
We'll play an unofficial drinking game.
Right,
in between
right.
everything that I've observed, you have to take a drink. Cheers.
Oh, great. I guess it makes sense.
Another thing I've noticed that is part of the UK drinking culture here is doing rounds. Now, I don't remember what video we talked about this, and it might have been like in an etiquette video or something.
Rounds.
But I've already lost my train of thought. Say you're going to a pub with a group of friends, you're going to be there for a few hours, it's expected that you're going to have quite a few drinks, then you might do rounds.
Oh, right. Where one person buys everybody a drink, and that whole round is on them, and then it goes to... Yeah, that is... It's funny, because as an American, that's like, honestly, something I only have seen in movies. I've never seen someone buy, like, a round of drinks in real life. Is that funny? Is that strange? I'm sure it happens in America, but I've never seen it. It's like not that common at all. So if that is actually part of normal, like, British drinking culture, like everywhere on a daily basis, people buying rounds, that is quite different, honestly.
So basically, one person buys everybody's drink and you each take turns. So naturally, this works best if you're going to be there for a while. Because say if there's like 4 to 5 people, you need to do, 4 to 5 rounds. So you need to have...
I was gonna say, this strategy really only makes sense if you are doing a lot of drinking, if you plan on doing a lot of drinking, then that's when the rounds strategy starts to make a lot of sense. So that kind of is a point in favor of the UK in general liking their drinks a little bit more.
Have enough time to, like, there needs to be enough time. Now, if you do not want to be part of the round, you simply buy your drink by itself and just let them know, hey, I'm not going to be drinking too much. I'm just going to buy my own. That's okay. You guys do the round without me. And then at least they know that you are not part of it, so people will not buy you drinks, and you will also not be expected to buy everybody else's drink.
Okay.
I hate the way that this tastes. It's a 4.4% Pilsner.
This is like the worst advertisement for this beer. Like
The only thing good about it is the color of the can.
Adam Polzar. It is a very cool can. Like, that's actually a very cool can, I have to say.
Now, in Canada, you can do rounds. I don't think it's as common. I have been in loads of situations at the pub where people were doing rounds here in the UK, but it's not something that I ever experienced back in Ontario.
Yeah, and likewise, I've never experienced it in America. Only in the movies.
It does happen, of course, but I think it is really part of the culture here in the UK. And again, last time I talked about rounds, I had a whole bunch of people saying they've never heard of it, they've never done it. I'm British born and bred and I never do rounds. And that's okay. That's okay, pal. You're allowed your opinion.
Oh. So we're getting conflicting reports here. Lots of people in the UK saying that they don't do rounds. I have to say, I do associate the whole rounds thing with Britain. Maybe that's because I just heard it. Literally just heard it. But I feel like I've always associated that. Anyway, I'm sure there's some truth to it.
But this is my opinion. Okay, thank you. Another thing I've noticed about the drinking culture here in the UK is that pubs are everywhere. Even though, like, thousands of pubs have closed in fairly recent years, it seems like a lot of them were really disappearing. Even still, there are so many pubs.
Really? Because that's interesting. Again, I would not say that there are bars everywhere in America. Bars everywhere. You can find a bar if you need a bar. I will say that, but to say they're everywhere, no, I wouldn't say that. So that is another difference. And that also does make it seem like just the drinking culture is bigger in the UK.
In the UK, it's hard to comprehend. So
I wonder how much everywhere actually means. Like, is there a pub on every other street? Like, what does that actually mean? I'm very curious now. I need like a pub density of all of Britain.
somehow it's starting to get good. Oh no, the aftertaste is not good. In Canada, you will see the odd pub, but they are typically marketed as a British pub, so it's more of like either a novelty because people are like, ooh, a British pub, let's go see what it's like. Or they're trying to sort of play on the British heritage that many Canadians have.
Okay, it's kind of like a knockoff or like an imitation. It's an imitation of a British pub. Well, there are no pubs in America. If there are, it is a complete novelty. It's either an Irish pub or a British pub, and it has a giant sign on it that says that, and it's part of the name, and it's a gimmick. There's no like authentic pubs in America, period. So that for sure is a major difference. And Americans don't even know what a pub means, basically, including me. But I kind of understand it. They sound actually pretty cool.
But you don't see them, everywhere, if that makes sense. Whereas you can come to a village here in the UK. I know a particular village that has 4 pubs.
What?
4 pubs and houses and nothing else. That's it. Now, we could get into the history of
Okay. Fun. Yeah, sure.
pubs, which at this point I'm not going to, but they used to typically be called public houses. I don't know if all pubs are technically public houses or
Really?
only certain types or what have you, but public houses, as you can imagine, were a big part of the community. One second. So
Yeah, the whole idea of a pub does seem like that's a great way of putting it. Community. The idea of the pub, it's like a community gathering area, the old watering hole. But seriously, it's like everyone goes there. It's like a community kind of feeling. And it also is kind of connected to the idea of rounds, now that I think of it. Even the idea of buying rounds of beers for each other, that's like community. It's like bonding and like your community when you do that. So all these little things subtly reinforce this like overarching theme of drinking culture in the UK is about community. That's actually kind of nice.
you go to your public house, your local pub, and it's a large part of the community. You relax there, you hang out there, you
Right.
chat with your neighbors and your friends and your family, and
Yeah, that is just to hammer this point down. That is not at all what happens at bars in America. Very different pubs and bars.
sometimes there's kids there, sometimes there's dogs.
Right.
You're really lucky there's
What?
dogs there. I love
What?
dogs. And it's just a very like comforting, welcoming place.
Wow.
Which is one of
Wow.
the things that I absolutely love about pubs.
It's like this secret clubhouse, like for adults, well, and for family. There's just nothing like it in America, truly.
Now in Canada, we don't have that. We don't have, a small town and the pub is sort of the center of it like you do
Yeah.
here in the UK.
Yeah,
We don't have communities sort of surrounding a pub.
yeah, true.
I don't know what to do with my hands. Instead of a pub, in Canada, we sort of have two different sort of things. Establishments, if you will. So
Huh?
you either have a bar,
Yes.
which is an adult place. Kids don't go to
Adult place. That's a funny way to put it. For the sake of easiness, I'm gonna say there are a lot of similarities between Canada and America. So I'm kind of like I'm able to be in her frame of mind when comparing and contrasting all this. Yes, bars are for adults. End of story. End of story.
the bar. Dogs don't go to the bar. It's more typically like a party atmosphere. It's
Yeah.
drinking. It's maybe even dancing, more like a dance club kind of
Yeah.
thing. But it's
Yeah.
there's a whole type of variety of bars, but it's very much like an adult thing.
Yes.
Okay. However, you also have restaurants. So in
Yeah.
North America, we have lots of like sports bars, which is a whole nother thing. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a restaurant. It's kind of like a bar. But where am
Wait. Are we saying that in the UK, in Britain, you don't really have bars in the restaurant? And sports bars? Is that what we're saying? I didn't know that. Wait, is that what we're saying? Because, yeah, I'm like so used to it. It's hard for me to even like separate myself and think of it objectively, but every restaurant basically has a bar in it. Yeah, every restaurant has a bar in it. You can sit at it, it's a bar. I don't know how else to say it. Okay, man.
I going with this? If you take the idea of a restaurant, you go there with your family or your friends or whatever, you have a meal, you might have a drink, they might have a bar area that kids might not be allowed to even go into that space.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's not that cozy
No.
community feeling that
No. Yeah, none of this. I see now a big part of, obviously it makes sense, a large part of British drinking culture is built around the pub, which makes a lot of sense. The pub, this magical, mystical place of community and family. I still can't even wrap my mind around it. I've certainly never been in one, so yes. They're just these things that exist in movies to me. But no. The bars and the restaurants and not for the kids, not anything like that.
pubs have here in the UK. That one felt like a really long ramble, and if you are still with me, cheers.
Seriously.
Now, one of the things I like about pubs here in the UK is that you will often, so you go to the bar, you pay for your drinks, whatever, or your food, or both. You go back to your table, you eat or you drink, you just relax. And a lot of the times you are left to your own devices. You are just like, you're not bothered. They almost forget that you're there, which I really love. I love
At the pub? Are we talking about the pub?
drink, you just relax, food or both. You go back to your table, pay for, so you go to the bar, you pay for your drinks.
Oh yeah, and the pub has a bar. Man, it's easy for me to get a little confused here because the pub has a bar. Yeah, this idea of getting your drinks and then just hanging out. Well, you kind of do that at an American bar too. Which are we talking about?
Just like, you're not bothered. They almost forget that you're there, which I really love. I love going to the pub with friends and you just, you have a couple drinks, you just sit there and relax and hang out. And it's this really sort of comforting, chill vibe.
All right, there we go. That's the major difference. I mean, at an American bar, you can go up to the bar and, well, usually you'll open a tab and get a bunch of drinks throughout the night, and then you'll pay at the end. So maybe that's different. But yeah, this idea of this cozy, comfortable, chill place to hang out. You can be left alone, or you can go get service if you want it. The idea of that whole concept, that is like this fantasy that I only have heard of and does not exist in America.
I find a lot of the times in Canada, if you go to a restaurant, say, you have lunch, you have some pints, when you are done, they expect you to leave. No hanging out.
Right, yeah, that's another good point. Yeah, like, certainly, at sports bars, bars at restaurants, and if you get food at bars, when you're done eating or drinking, it's not for hanging out. So that is very different. That's very different for sure. Yeah, that's a good one. You're gonna get the stink eye. You're gonna get the evil eye. They're gonna be like, you guys gonna leave, or do we have to start cleaning up the table while you're sitting there? So you get the idea. That certainly has happened. Yes, okay. Yeah, just the overall vibe, just the overall feeling. Community, as I said before. And like comfort and chill. Attitude. That's very different between the establishments in Britain and America. And like she's saying, I really like the idea of the pub in Britain. I like it.
Of course, that's not the case for all places, but I just find North America as a whole, in part of the culture, you go to the restaurant, say, or the pub, you have lunch, you have dinner, whatever, you have a couple drinks. When you pay, usually at the end, you leave.
Yeah.
You don't just sit there.
Yeah.
Whereas the pubs in the UK, you can really sort of lounge.
Wow.
And sort of take your time, which is really nice.
Wow.
Now, say you come to the UK and you are working, hopefully, you got a nice job, hopefully, and your colleagues say, let's get a drink after work, let's go to the pub after work. Fabulous. So going to the pub for a drink, in my mind, is something a little bit different than what it actually is. So typically...
Oh, okay. This is a very unique scenario. So, after work, going to the pub to get a drink. Apparently, that's not as straightforward as it sounds. What does that actually mean?
After work. Fabulous. So going to the pub for a drink, in my mind, is something a little bit different than what it actually is.
Okay.
So typically, if you go to the pub for a drink, it usually means many drinks, and it oftentimes means no food.
Okay.
And I like food, so it's a bit of a struggle.
Why does that matter? No food. No food. Why would that be implied? Is it because you don't want it to take a long time? You're just there to get your drinks in, couple rounds, and skedaddle? Is that the idea?
Somebody in the UK at work says, we're going for a meal after work, that would indicate that you're
Oh.
actually eating, but of course you're probably drinking as well. But if they just say we're going to the pub for a drink or going out for drinks, it is just drinking.
Oh, wow. Hmm. This is a level of specificity that I would have had absolutely no idea about. I can see why she's mentioning this, because I actually get it. This is actually specific enough to where it would matter. Because I would expect to be able to get food if we're going down to the pub. If the blokes are or what are inviting me down to the pub for a drink, I would expect to eat. But then it's like, no, you said that's a meal. We're going for a meal. Okay, that's a very nuanced sort of thing. I like that. I like that kind of specific cultural difference.
And sometimes it's a lot of drinking. Whereas in Ontario or in Canada, if you were going for a drink after work with colleagues, it's probably only one or two, because then people are going to want to go home and have dinner. You know, like they want to eat. We are an
Yeah.
eating nation, and they want to go home and eat.
Yeah.
Or if you're going out in Canada, going for a drink after work, that might also include like an actual meal with a drink or
Yeah.
a couple drinks.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah, you gotta eat. You gotta eat. You guys not eating? You're just surviving on the sustenance of the beer somehow.
Usually it's just more food involved. Otherwise, you're just having one drink and you're going home because we're hungry. We're always hungry. Cheers to food. Am I right or am I right?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I agree with that. Okay, I'm gonna stop it right there. We're about halfway through this video. Man, we're starting to get a little more specific here with the differences in drinking culture between, well, the UK, in her case, Canada, and in my case, America. But there are some pretty drastic differences. And I actually, honestly, the idea of the drinking culture in Britain sounds really nice to me. Like, I like it. I like what I'm hearing, and yeah, that's the impression I'm getting so far. But tune back in for part two at a later date, probably the video after this one, part two of learning about British drinking culture. Still got a lot left to learn, but so far I'm rather enjoying this. It's so interesting how just Britain in America are very similar in many ways, not just because we both speak English, but it's funny how stuff like the way the establishments we drink alcohol at are so different, like in importance and function, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK, things about the UK that I've never seen or learned before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.